Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me on From Compassion to the Conversation. I am here with Ryan Frederigill, owner of Hendersons Funeral and Cremation Care. Ryan is a second generation funeral home director. How are we doing today, Ryan?
I am incredibly fantastic. Thanks for asking, Mike.
Hey, no worries. It's another beautiful day outside. And today we are going to talk about how you plan a funeral when you've never done it before. This is a big question for people and a big fear. So I think we're going to be able to overcome some of those fears and answer some questions for people today.
That
So
sounds like
what
a
I
great
wanted to
plan
ask,
and a good topic.
it is a good topic and it's something that needs to be addressed. So let me ask you this, Ryan. Let's just get this thing started the right way. What are the step-by-step basics of planning a funeral or cremation service, especially if you've never done it before?
That is a great question, Mike. And the first thing I'm going to say to even kind of back it up a smidge before that, the
You
best
bet.
way to plan a funeral here in Des Moines, Iowa, or anywhere where your family does have a need is going to be to plan it ahead of time. Have that talk. Tomorrow is not promised. It is not guaranteed. We all have plans for tomorrow, and some of us unfortunately don't make it there. It is a lot less emotional when you have time to think through the process and really come up with a plan that works for you, your family, and your budget versus somebody experiences a loss tonight. They're sitting across the table from me tomorrow. The emotions are extremely high. And again, you have all of those where you might not have known what your dad, mom, brother, sister wanted with their funeral plans because they didn't talk about it. And so it sounds cheesy coming from a funeral director, I know, but one of the best gifts that you can do is have a plan for your family. Whether you fund it or not, at least have that plan there and tell them where it's at and how they can assess it if something happens in a sudden event where somebody were to pass away. Other than that, to answer your question, somebody passes away today, a lot of times, we're going to go ahead and be meeting with them the next day. Some people immediately know when we pick up their loved one, whether we're going to have a viewing, whether we're going to embalm, or we're going to plan through some cremation options, or some people just seriously don't know at that time. What we do until they do know, and we give them the time to think about what they would like, is we keep their loved one as cool as possible. Sometimes we do have to use a morgue in order to do that. What that does is that preserves giving us time, giving them time to make a decision that's right for them. If they tell us they would like a funeral, we're going to have an open casket. We would prepare and for an embalming, which disinfects the body. It also preserves the body. It allows us to have a funeral 3 weeks later or 7 days later, and their loved one's still going to look good. If they're thinking cremation options, certainly we could take them to our crematory and prepare them for cremation. That cremation would not happen until the documentation is all done. We need the legal next of kin to sign off on it. From there, we have to get a cremation permit in order to cremate anybody. But even with cremation, there's a lot of decisions that could be made. How are we still going to honor that one's loved one's life? Or are we going to view their body prior to the cremation and after having a funeral still? So you do have options with either way that you want to go. But again, we're going to ask a lot of those questions and we're going to guide the family step by step through the process. But we're going to take the time to listen to them to know what's best for their funeral decisions or their cremation options as well.
Yeah, it is critical. So let's just say that the unforeseen happens. What should someone do in the first 24 hours after a loved one passes away?
Absolutely. Notify all your immediate family, notify those close friends that you want to be listed in kind of or updated with anything. From there, it's a matter of making an appointment with funeral home, selecting the funeral director. From there, they can get your loved one in their care. They can start any of those processes that need to be started. And then from there, it's a matter of scheduling a time to come into the funeral home and make arrangements with us. And what we would call arrangements is we're going to ask a lot of questions. And what we're going to do with these questions is one, We create the death certificate, we send it to the doctor signs it, eventually sends it back to us, and then we can get death certificates. That information that we're going to need is where they were born, date of birth, social security number. From there, the other hardest number, or not number, but question sometimes is their mother's maiden name. There's just some times where family members don't know that. So that's going to be one of the tougher questions. From there, we're going to ask a lot more so we can put together an obituary for the family. And again, it would be a draft. We would never publish it anywhere until they have their eyes on it, they proof it, they make corrections, changes, additions. But those questions are going to be, what their hobbies were, where they grew up at, where did they work at, all of their surviving family members that we want listed for an obituary. Anybody that's passed away, again, we could sure list those people as well. And then lastly, it's all the details about the actual service itself. Are we going to have a celebration of life? Are we going to have a funeral? Are we going to do a visitation? Are we going to have musicians involved? Are we going to have caterers involved? Are we going to have, you know, at a church, at a funeral home, at a park, anywhere that the family really wants to kind of have that? Our job is to coordinate it all, take the pressure off of them so they can focus on grieving and being present with one another, why we at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care really line up all the details for the family and take some of those burdens away from them.
That was a very very thorough answer, which I myself and a lot of other people appreciate. So I know when you were saying decide on your funeral home and your funeral director and kind of what you're doing. Um, so let's say that they did decide on you, and they did decide to choose the best. You can smile at that one.
We
Um,
appreciate that. We sure
if,
try our
if
best.
you could just tell us
That's for sure.
what happens when you call Henderson's Funeral Home for the very first time, day or night? Just that beginning process.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a great question. And so what you'll find is we do answer our own phones at Henderson's Funeral and Cremation Care here in Des Moines. I had to unfortunately use a funeral home up in Wisconsin over the weekend. And my gosh, I called 3 funeral homes. They all had answering services. And the soonest funeral director that called me back was 30 minutes later. If it was an immediate need in the middle of the night, boy, that would be frustrating for a family. And my family and my kids, myself, we even discussed that, how they're shocked other funeral homes don't answer their phones because they're just so used to seeing me do it 98% of the time. We do have some other
Right.
staff members that take it too. But when you call Henderson's, we're going to immediately answer your questions. From there, I'm going to ask a little bit of, what the person's name is, where they passed away, who the next of kin is, are they married, are there children, is it a niece, whatever those conditions are, where they're at. And then we're gonna send a funeral director or a removal technician to get them into our care right away. Once they're in our care, it really does just depend on what type of procedures we're going to be moving forward with. And then if they're not ready to schedule a time for an arrangement, not a problem. We would follow up with them the next day when they would like us to then get that rest of the information and schedule that arrangement time.
So, Brian, what is an arrangement conference, and what should families expect to bring and decide during that arrangement conference?
Absolutely. So if you know you're going to have a funeral, we would love for you to bring clothing. We love undergarments that an individual would normally wear. Some people still want to be dressed in a suit. Some people want to be dressed in a sweatpants. No wrong or right with us. We're just happy to help and then to take the best of care of their loved one and prepare them to look as natural as possible. If you're not planning, any type of viewing, then we would just need those questions answered. Social Security, where they were born at, all of those details so we can really then walk everybody through the process, ask all of those questions, and then come up with a game plan of how we're going to honor their loved one's life.
Perfect. So, when it comes to the bigger decisions, how do families choose between burial and cremation, and what options are available?
Absolutely. So, 25 years ago, 95% of every family wanted a full funeral. Here
Yep.
we are anymore. I think it's about 65% of families already know they want to be cremated here in Des Moines. Again, some families are just on the fence and don't know exactly what they want. But I would say anymore, people know whether they want to be cremated, whether they want to be buried in a cemetery, and so that's going to be kind of the biggest decisions right off the bat. But from there, through that arrangement process, we can really just decide how we're going to honor their loved one's life, whatever the decision is right for them.
Perfect. So, what are the different ways to plan a meaningful funeral or memorial service?
So there's so many different meaningful ways to plan a service. And again, it really boils down to the right one for the family. Do we want it to be religious themed? Do we want it to be at a church? Do we want it to be non-religious themed? Do we want it to just be a celebration of their life with close friends speaking? Are we going to let family speak? From there, do we want it catered? We're seeing more people that do have refreshments at services as well, and just really no right or wrong way to have a funeral or a celebration of life. It really just boils down to families' needs and what they want and how that process helps them. I am still the old school thinking. And again, there is that data out there that does show it. Having a viewing is still important to kind of begin that grieving process for families. But again, that viewing process could still happen followed by cremation. And so it's just those things to really talk through families, give them their options. None of them are right or wrong for us at Hendersons. It's really just what the family's needs are, what they want, and how we can serve them the best.
You bet. And I appreciate the care and compassion that you guys put into all this, and your respect for the families. Um, what Now, this one's kind of a big one because people need to be prepared for this. But what kind of paperwork needs to be handled after death, and how does Henderson's help with that process?
Yep, absolutely. So the biggest thing that people need right off the bat is going to be death certificate. And again, sometimes it takes 2 months to get a death certificate. Sometimes it takes 2 days. The biggest thing is if there's an autopsy, they won't sign a death certificate after the autopsy. The average time frame is about 2 months, and that is because they're doing all the different testing that they're doing because of that autopsy. Once they get their results back, then they can sign off on the death certificate. If there's no autopsy, I would say it's pretty normal. We have a death certificate back within a week. You typically need a death certificate for life insurance companies, pensions, retirement accounts, investment brokers, and a lawyer at all if you're going to have one for the estate. Almost everybody else, banks, creditors, do take copies of a certified death certificate and not keep the original from you. We, as the funeral home, would also file Social Security directly for the family. If you are married and have a spouse, Social Security does pay out $255. If you don't have a spouse, Social Security doesn't pay anything out. So that, I think families are often shocked about that, and it is kind of shocking to hear, you're 64 years old, you paid in for 40 years of working, and there's no death benefit. So it's kind of crazy, but I'm no lawmaker to change that law, that's for darn sure.
I just learned something new today. So, since we are addressing the fact of people dealing with death for first time, in your opinion, how should someone communicate the news of a death to family and friends during this difficult time?
It is such a difficult time to have to be the person that does share the news with another individual. And, my heart always goes out for any family member that has to break all of that news. And for us, even to get a call at a funeral home when you hear some of the stories and how young some of these people are. And it's just shocking, and it breaks your heart. There's no good way to do it. But again, if you can do it person to person, face to face, look somebody in the eye, give them a hug, cry on their shoulders, be the shoulder to cry on. It is always better than receiving a text message that mom or dad died, but that's also kind of the way that we are in communication with one another now. I would try to avoid group checks. I would try to avoid texting at all. If you can come together as a family, be around each other, and be there to support one another to break that news to your other loved ones. That's certainly helpful.
Yeah, that personal connection is is deeply important at a time like this. So I know we've gone over a lot of information, but let's kind of wind this one up. And if you could just kind of summarize everything you said, and if you could let me know why Henderson's 24/7 availability is so important for families in the Des Moines area.
Absolutely. So we're here to help. And again, whether we're just answering questions or we're going to be entrusted to take care of your loved ones, I mean, we are here for any Des Moines family, any Iowa family that needs funeral service, cremation service. We do cover the state when it comes to kind of some of those other cremation options as well. But we are here for you 24/7. No question is dumb. Call anytime. We're happy to answer those and walk you through anything that we can to help with any of your loved ones' needs. Back to planning a funeral, if you can do it in advance, talk to one another, and let your wishes be known and documented. Again, it is a great gift to help your family and to share with others that maybe don't think about it, maybe don't want to listen or talk about the thought of mom or dad getting old and maybe someday passing away. But again, it's going to be better in the long run to have a plan.
I totally agree, and like all our viewers and listeners know, you and I are going to be having that talk very soon. You and I have kind of already got a little bit of a game plan. We just need to sit down and get it done. So,
You got to get that
uh,
whiskey bottle gone first.
oh, I think I have a couple of them sitting around the house. It's the little airplane bottles I'm
Okay, there you
struggling
go.
with. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for answering all the questions. If you're not familiar with the entire process, definitely contact Hendersons. They would be more than happy to help, whether it be with pre-planning or immediately following. So thank you again for joining Ryan and myself on From Compassion to the Conversation. And thanks a lot, Ryan, for answering all my questions again today.